Hey there, Chad here. Thanks for joining me. Let's play some Ostranauts. And in this episode, we're going to try to finish up our new ship, the flip ship. That is the Silent Majority. And in the last episode, I said that I probably needed to pick up some more walls, and then I kind of realized maybe I didn't need to, but I did go ahead and do that. I went and picked up a couple of wall sections. I filled this dolly up with those. I also added a couple of doors, and right now we're working on repairing those doors. I'm not really sure what Emma's deal is. She still isn't all that interested in helping with the standard tasks of repairing and things like that. Roster is set appropriately. So yeah, don't really know what to do about that. But we will finish this repair up, and then we're going to take all this stuff into the new ship, finish sealing it off so that we can put some atmosphere in it, and we will go from there. Now, I already have Chad's helmet on. We're going to go ahead and put Emma's helmet on. She did do a little work. I think she fixed this door. And everything that's going to be going on here for a little bit is stuff we have seen before. So I thought perhaps I would share a story with everyone. And this is a story that I guess you could say was 32 years in the making and kind of found its final chapter in the last couple of weeks. I've been married to my wife since 1993, and in early 94, we went on a honeymoon, and we were driving through the state of Illinois in January, and it was the coldest day on record in Illinois. I believe that record still holds. It was the third week of January 1994, and we're not in agreement on the exact date of when this all happened, but we agree it was one of a couple of days. And we were driving back home. We were living in Madison, Wisconsin, and it was late, and my wife was driving, and we suffered a blowout. It was a front driver's side blowout, and if you've ever had that happen, it's kind of dangerous because it can be kind of difficult to get the car back under control. She was able to get it under control without too much trouble, and we pulled over to the side of the road. But here's the rub. It was night. I believe it was a Sunday, and it had snowed about a foot. It was we're going to say minus 15 degrees or so, but there were roughly 50 mile an hour winds. So the wind chill was down in the extremely dangerous zone where you don't want wind chill to be when you're outside. We had a trunk full of stuff with a spare tire under the trunk, and it was going to take me to unload all that stuff in order to get to the spare tire. I could only be out in the weather for a few moments. We were coming home from Florida, and while we did have some winter clothing, we weren't super prepared for it being, in the negatives, certainly not at that level. And we certainly weren't expecting a blowout either. Also, to make things worse, I had come down sick the day before. I was running a fever. I think if you were looking in, my fever was in the 101 range, which I think is 39 Celsius if you're metric, and just not feeling well, wasn't doing well. That's part of the reason Kelly was driving. Usually I do the driving. I kind of like doing the driving. She usually sits in for a little bit, but this kind of was her haul because I was just under the weather. And we sat there, and it was a Sunday night, as I recall. The calendar tells us it might have been a Monday or Tuesday as well, based on a couple of things that we remember a little bit differently. But nonetheless, it was a strange night. I kind of remember having to be back at work. I was new on my job. We were newly married. We didn't have any money. It wasn't something that I could really push the issue. And that's why I'm pretty sure it was a Sunday. But nonetheless, we are sitting in the car, and there is nobody coming, and the wind is blowing the dry snow. Okay, I clearly messed something up here, didn't I? The snow's being blown all over the road here, and we can barely see. We happened to have We happen to have a CB radio, and that's a citizen band radio. This was back in the 90s when that wasn't entirely unusual, but we certainly didn't have cell phones or car phones or anything like that. And as you can imagine, we're feeling a little isolated, and we see no cars go by for a solid half hour. We're on an interstate. It is a fairly busy interstate, and there is simply no traffic. And we start to panic a little bit. We're young, very early 20s, and not terribly worldly between us. So we were just not sure what to expect. We kind of thought that there would be highway patrol come by or something like that, because that isn't unusual in that part of the country. And we had driven that route probably 20 times at that point. It was a regular trip for us to where we were coming from anyway, and was certainly not unusual to see highway patrol constantly. So we just assumed that would happen, but it didn't. So we get on the CB, and I was not really well educated in how to use the CB, or specifically how to set it up. And this is kind of a weirdness, but the way you attached your antenna and how high you seated it above the base impacted how well your transmissions would occur. And I didn't know that at the time. I think, so this was January. I think we got the CB for Christmas. So we'd only had it a couple of weeks. We threw it in the car. We were on vacation, weren't using it. Car was actually not even with us. Come back, picked up the car from where we were. Anyway, so the idea being, I didn't hook it up entirely right. People could hear us a couple of miles away, but as they got closer, they couldn't hear us. So we did finally see a couple of trucks go by, and we could hear them just fine, but they said that we were garbled and staticky and all this. And one guy, we heard him describing our situation on the CB to other truckers that, theoretically could hear him and at least pass on some information about us. And he said, they're sitting at, I think it was like the 36-mile marker or something like that. And they're northbound, and they're on the inside lane. Be careful. And, somebody needs to reach out somewhere and see what's going on. And okay, so that happened. That went on for another 15 or 20 minutes. And then a truck going the other direction suddenly stops. We see him coming. We see him slowing down. We heard him say, I'm going to check on him. And he pulled over kind of, right across from us on the other side of the highway. If you're not in the United States, our interstates, they tend to be 2 or 3 lanes each direction. Those lanes are 12, 14 feet wide. So that's a little more than 4 meters. We have medians between the two, usually with some sort of fence. In this case, it was a steel cable. And what the space between the lanes of different directions is, I would put it at 15 yards, so roughly 15 meters. It was blowing so hard we could see the lights on the truck. The snow was blowing so hard we could see the lights on the truck. We could not actually make out the truck, though. We couldn't see what it said on the side. We could tell it was a semi-trailer. So, there was the tractor part, the trailer part. It would look like it was a sleeper cab. Weren't 100% sure of that because it just really wasn't obvious. With all the snow blowing, it was difficult to see. And then we see a figure coming towards us. And, so at first I'm like, oh, thank God somebody's here to help us. And then that little panic jumps in of, how do we know he's not going to, whatever. Your mind goes to dark spots, right? I don't think that's entirely unusual in a circumstance where you are out of control and in a different element and, frankly, freaked out a little bit. So, but long story short, he came over. I got out of the car and spoke with him as best we could over the screeching wind. And he told me his name was Wayne. I called him sir a couple of times, and he said, you can call me Wayne. And he was an older gentleman. I'd say he was in his mid to late 50s. And very kindly looking, and I just felt kind of at ease. And he said, well, I don't think I can help you, but I can drive you to the next town. And that town was Minonk, Illinois. My wife and I thought, well, we don't really have any other options, do we? So we went with him. We got in his truck, and he drove us to the next town. And It probably took about 15 minutes. He was very kind. And in our discussion, we learned that his name was Wayne Doke, and he was out of, I think it was Lafayette, Indiana at the time. And he was a self-employed trucker. He owned his own trucking business, and he was heading back from Iowa. He had just finished a delivery. He was heading home for the night. He was hoping to get home before midnight so that he could see the family or, whatever the story was. But very kind. Drove us into the town and got us there, and that was fantastic. I am dragging here. I realize that, but I think this is a fun story to listen to. So, Wayne drops us off at Town Hall, which, by the grace of God, had a town meeting occurring. It was like 9:30 at night. I don't know what town in central Illinois and part of the Bible Belt has town meetings on Sunday night, which is part of the reason we're thinking maybe it wasn't Sunday. It might have been Monday or Tuesday. I still really think I had to be back at work on Monday, though. But nonetheless, there's a town meeting, and everybody's there. And we see the sheriff. And the sheriff comes over and talks to us and asks what's going on. And we tell him, and he's like, oh, I just heard about your car on the radio. The highway patrol just showed up and things like this. And he said, well, Mike over here, Mike's our local mechanic. Mike can probably take care of it for you. Well, let's get him. He's here at the meeting. And the whole town was at the meeting. It was utterly amazing to see. I don't know what was going on in the town at that time in 1994 that they had a huge town meeting at 9:30 at night and there were so many people there. But nonetheless, we meet Mike, and Mike is he's the mechanic. He works for the local garage, and he has a tow truck. And Mike goes out with us, and he realizes he can't change the tire either, not in those conditions. It just was next to impossible. So he ends up towing us back to Minonk to his garage, and happened to be working on a car that was due the next day that had the same tire size as what we had. Now, Minonk, Illinois is in the middle of nowhere. At that time, it probably had a population of about 2,000. It was a farm town, and the fact that there happened to be a car with the right size tires, the same size tires, and he decided he was going to take a tire off of that car to get us on our way, and he would order one and get the other person taken care of the next day, and, quote, they would just have to understand, which was fantastic. So at this point, Mr. Wayne Doke is no longer there, but we're dealing with Mike, and Mike takes care of the car, and we get on our way, and we safely get home. And that was a minor miracle in and of itself. Well, my wife and I are the type that like to, as self-serving as it sounds, we like to reward people for a job well done. And at the very least, when we were that old and newly married and, making next to nothing for money, we thought at the very least we could send a thank you note to Mr. Doke. And we started looking. Now, again, 1994, yes, the internet exists. No, the web really does not. It kind of did. Mosaic had been released. The internet didn't exist, for all practical purposes. You couldn't just go and look somebody up, at least not at that point. It was not easy to do. So we started trying to track down Mr. Wayne Doke of, again, I think it was Lafayette, Indiana at the time. It might have been Fort Wayne or something like that, but it was a town we knew the name of, and we knew where it was effectively. And we go looking for Mr. Doke, and we don't find it. That's a little weird. Well, a year goes by. Christmas is rolling around. We thought about trying a Christmas card, try finding him again. Can't find Mr. Doke. No Mr. Doke to be found. I start realizing that, well, he told me he had his own trucking company. Maybe he's registered with the Department of Transportation, which is necessary in the United States, or, at least with a local Better Business Bureau or the state or something. And we're looking and looking, and we do not find Mr. Wayne Doke of Indiana. Do not find him. And it just is a weird thing in our life. And over the years, so again, we've been married since 93. So what that makes it 32, we're going on 32 years this year. We looked for Mr. Doke probably once a year, at least with some intent. We certainly weren't calling the state registries anymore or anything like that to try to track this guy down. But as you know, as you grow older, you have better means, right? You have better relationships, you have better ideas, you know more people, you know more things. We had thought of some things through the years of, well, once the internet started to hit, let's look for all truck businesses, in Indiana, and nothing. Never found the man. Couple of weeks ago, through a strange weirdness, I was talking with somebody at work. I work from home for the most part, and I was sharing that story with him. I can't quite remember how we got on the topic, but we were on the topic, and I'm logistics adjacent for shipping at this point in my career. So I think that's part of how it came about. My wife had come in to print something out. She kind of overheard the conversation, and she thought to herself, you know what, I should look that guy up again. It has been a while now since we had looked. Never, ever, ever found any internet signs of this person even existing. Facebook, otherwise, nothing. And at this point, we knew he was probably in his 80s, and he, for all practical purposes, there's a chance he's not with us anymore. And I'm on the phone, and I'm on my work phone, and my cell phone starts blowing up. I'm getting a bunch of text messages. And I look at it while I'm talking to my buddy at work, and it's my wife texting me. And she's like, "You're not going to believe this." And I guess to make a long story short, she found Mr. Wayne Doke, and how she found him was absolutely incredible. I was telling this story on a Wednesday. Mr. Doke had passed away on the previous Friday, and she had found his obituary. So this man that we had looked for all these years, that because we wanted to express to him our thanks and our gratitude and kind of at least let him know that, everything worked out for us, we never found him. And the first mention of him on the internet was his obituary, which is a very sad thing in a lot of ways, I guess. Although if you're a private person and you're not into, all of that, I guess it's maybe not entirely unusual. It's, I guess, not sad. It's a way of living, I guess. Anyway, Mr. Doke had passed away, and we had information about his funeral and all that. I went to his memory wall, which is something that funeral homes do here. And it's, a tribute wall or something like this where you can leave messages. And I shared a typed version of that story. And his family reached out to us a couple of days later. The day I wrote it was the day of the funeral, actually. The timing was completely spectacular. And honestly, I think if we had found it a day or two earlier, we may have tried to go. We don't live that far from Indiana where that would have been a heartache of a trip. Would have had to take a day off work. That would have been about it. And so his granddaughter actually reached out to us, and we have started a small friendship with her and with their family based on this amazing kindness that their grandfather demonstrated to us, 30 plus years ago. And that has been just something I wanted to share. It's kind of a neat story. For all these years, we had no idea who this man was. We didn't know if he really existed. My family is Christian, and we're not like overly into the supernatural part of the religion, I guess, what I'd like to say. But we do know that things happen sometimes, and most of those things are happening for a very specific reason. And this was one of those that just couldn't be explained for so long. It was a tremendous story that we have shared 50 times in 30 years, probably. And it was disappointing that we didn't ever get to actually speak to the man, but getting to talk with his grandchildren was pretty fantastic. Unfortunately, his son passed away a couple of years ago, so that's a shame. But Mr. Doke was able to meet his great-grandchildren, who loved their pawpaw, is what I've been told. And, so that's kind of, I guess there's a happy ending in a way to that story at the end of the day. So I'm realizing we didn't get a whole lot done here. A lot of time has passed since I started telling this little tale. Every ounce of it true to the best of my knowledge, but that is what happened. That is the legend of Wayne Doke, and that will live on in our life forever, and I hope it lives on in his family's life forever as well. And I hope that's something they share, that, there's a story about Grandpa. I really hope that happens for them, and that they know that he demonstrated a kindness to strangers on the road. He reached out and tried to help. It's a very fantastic thing. And again, bittersweet ending, but we're looking forward to getting to know the legacy that he has left behind in regards to his family. Okay, well, I think it is time to see how we did on this particular ship flip. I want to real quick just run through here. I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anything. We have air. We actually have atmosphere now, so we can take our helmets off and run in here if we want. Won't die. We have heat. We have cooling. Now, I don't have vents. Vents would be very helpful because then you could use the doors more regularly. But for now, this will do. I was one intake short. I thought I had another one. You know what? I didn't recheck if there was anything on that dolly. Let me check that. I'll have Emma do that real quick. Oh, and she's still in her helmet. You don't need that. Actually, she can get back into her civvies. Try that again. Cargo pants, right? Yep. So we'll just do some cleanup here. She's got stuff on her. Yeah, we'll get that taken care of. Getting hungry. Over to here. Okay, carbon fiber will go there. Small mechanical. We'll hang on to the trash, scrap steel. Okay, trash will go right here. And I think that does it for Emma anyway. Let her go back about her relaxing. What time is it? 23:51. Yeah. Let's go ahead and give her some time. Maybe we'll have them sleep. But I think in the meantime, we are going to head back. Let's find Chad real quick. So did he come in here or not? I think he did. Maybe he didn't. Nitrogen is at pressure. Good. Okay. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. We're going to rename this ship. Okay. So to rename it, we just click the pencil. I did have to click on nav station here, so it knew which one I was trying to attach to, I guess is really the point there. And let's give this one a new name. And I can't think of a more appropriate name right now than this one. The Legend of Wayne Doke. So we're going to name the ship that. And there it is. We are set. So our ship has a new name. Let's go see what we can sell it for. I'm trying to think if I could separate the ship, have one of them on each of them, and if that would do me any good. I'm not sure that it would. So what I think I might do, well, yeah, let's try it. Let's see if we can separate from this one. Okay. Unread messages. Yeah, I kind of thought that might be the case. Okay, so docking info, request clearance, request undocking. Oh, the ship is unregistered. I'm not sure why that is. Well, we're now flying around. Let's take a quick peek here. Because the transponder was turned off, I think. See if we can dock. I don't seem to have any control right, pardon me, any control right now. So I missed a step somewhere, and I'm not thinking of what that is. Let's see if we can figure that out. Okay, we have thrusters. I don't have power. Well, that's going to be problematic. We will pick these up. That conduit there, that is conduit. We'll uninstall that one. And we'll uninstall this one. And we'll put those over here. It's the little things sometimes, folks. Oh, I had conduit. I didn't even really need to do that, but that's okay. So let's, yeah, we have to attach to here. I was going to run a line there once I had everything I needed, and then I discovered I didn't have the extra intake. So we'll do that. Auto task. He'll get right on it. We'll get some power, and we will see what we can do. That's definitely our problem there. He's got some repairs he can do. We will come back to that. Okay, we now have... Let's go back to the ship, though. Okay. There we go. We now have control of the ship, and we are actually... Man, it's maneuverable, which is also good. Okay, let's... we're probably going to have to aim for over here. We'll head to that. Okay. "47 minutes out." Well, that'll give him some time to do a little bit of work on the ship. We'll let that go here real quick. Honestly, not a lot to do, is there? Okay, well, let's just get docked and see what we can sell this for. Still 23 minutes. Wow. Now going incredibly fast. We might want to kill that. Okay. How far out of sync are we? Okay, first of all, start slowing down a little bit. There we go. This will work. Let's get within. There we go. There it is. We are docked. Let's run downstairs once we are actually connected. Let's run downstairs and see what we're looking at. So because the airlock is on a different axis, well, not axis, but it's, pointing in a different direction. My station is now upside down to me based on the direction of the ship. And I thought there was supposed to be a way to change that, but I've never found it. I thought you were supposed to be able to do like a rotation of the entire screen, but I haven't been able to make that work. Lady, you gotta settle. Yeah, you gotta settle down. Yes, you do. Yeah, you gotta settle down. So for you shipbuilders out there, that is something to consider. How you get used to flying your first ship might be how you end up wanting to fly all of them. Am I actually moving there? I'm not sure. He's on sleep cycle. So are we in the, yeah, we're just outside the in-between time. Let me make that work time, and there we go. Okay, so come do what I'm telling you to do so we can get out of here. Down to commercial. And it's going to be really freaky if this flips the other way then. And it did. Okay. So here we go. What we can sell that for? $548,000. That is a pretty good haul. I'm going to take that. We'll go ahead and sell it. We'll jump back over to the other ship and we will try to find some new things to do in the next episode. I appreciate your time and I hope you have enjoyed this part of the series. I look forward to making more of these as we go forward. With the new version or build coming out, I'm probably going to want to restart and see how that works, maybe from ground up. Try another series where we start with nothing and move to the point where we can do this kind of thing, flip a ship and make lots and lots of money. So thank you again and hope to see you next time. Until then, fair travels.